I am interviewing Dick Ridgewell, who was a member of the 2nd 4th Machine Gun Battalion and was captured in Singapore and then went to the Burma-Thailand Railway and served as a member, well, was up there as a member of D-Force. Now that's enough of what I'm saying. Now we'll hear the story in Dick's own words. Dick, thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview this morning. Could you tell us where you were born and where you had your primary school?
Yeah, I said I'd let you read that bit of paper there. I was born, my people came down from Kalgoorlie in January 1918, and I was born a week later in Newcastle Street, Needham, at a nursing home. It was I believe it was the only nursing home for babies and things at that time. It's a public hospital, and that's all. I was born there, and then from there I went to North Fremantle. We lived in Harvest Road. My elder brother and sister went to North Fremantle School, but I was too young. But I can remember times knocking about there down the river and all that sort of thing, you know. Mm-hmm. Then we went up to, at that time my dad was driving trucks, a solid tyre truck, chain drive, from the wharf to the Shell Oil Company. All the fuel, kerosene and petrol used to come in those days in 4-gallon tins, 2 to a case. There was no bulk fuel at all. And he used to cart that from the wharf to Shell Oil Company in Fremantle, North Fremantle. Yes. And we stayed there, I don't know, well, I was still below school age when we left down there. And it came up to, we came up and lived in East Perth, Parry Street, East Perth. And set it right up, it only come open again. And I was there a year or two, and I started kindergarten there, the little East Perth kindergarten around the corner, and then I went to East Perth School. My elder brother was there before me, and my sister of course, but in those days, when you wanted any ink, the schools got it in powder, and they had to mix it with water, and then you did a ink well on the desk. And my brother had the honour of being able to mix the ink, so he was called Inky. And when I went to, when they joined me at the school, I was Little Inky. Oh. And I went to school there until, oh, I don't know, 2 or 3 years or something, and we moved over. My dad then went to work at Winterbottom Motor Company down in Yansway Way Road there. And we moved over to, actually Perth, on the border of Perth and East Perth, West Perth, and in Church Street. And we lived there. I went to James Street School, and I went there until I was just about 14, I think, and they cut the school out, and we all had to go to Highgate. And in the meantime, we moved up to Lane Street near the Highgate School, and I went there until I left school. I got out before they threw me out, and I got a job with a tobacconist, Alston's tobacconist. They used to, they had a shop in Hay Street and a shop in Barrack Street, and they used to mix special mixes. Everybody had their own mix, and they're all listed, and they used to make all special cigarettes and so forth. It used to come over from the east in 4-gallon tins, and I used to go and get them down at the shop in Barrack Street, close to the corner of Wellington Street, and on my pushbike I'd ride them up to Hay Street, and then they'd sell the tobacco from there. And I remember one day I was going round the corner with this big thing on the front, and I hit the policeman, and my tin of tobacco swept over, and I was sweeping tobacco up off the road, and the policeman laughed his head off, and I don't think anybody knew they was still smoking a bit of Barrack Street and Hay Street.
Yeah.
I worked there for, I don't know how many years, but then I can't think how long I was there, but a few years. And after they sold out, Foy and Gibson's took them over, and they closed down. And then I went then, I think, to Temple Court Garage, parking cars and washing cars and generally labour around there. I got into trouble there for punching the boss's nose in the nose, and I got sacked from there. And then I got another job then at Temple Court Garage. I was general dog's body, I was only a kid. And I think from there, from memory, I went rabbit trapping. Our icemen used to go rabbit trapping half the season in the winter and would live with the ice, and Les Thomas. Anyhow, I went rabbit trapping up at Chittering, and then after that I came back and where did I work at? Oh, I got a job at Pine Glass Rubber Company, and I was in Hay Street, 891 Hay Street, and I worked there for some years anyhow, and I got very sick, and I went to hospital and had noise and tantrums, and evidently I went mad under the anaesthetic and cleaned up a couple of nurses and so forth, and I finished up quite ill. And when I went back to work, they didn't want me because I was just turning 21. Mm. So I didn't have a job there, and I think from there I went up the golf fields. I did all sorts of little jobs, you know, get a job on the road or a job, and then went up to the golf field. A friend of ours came down from Leonora, Gwalia, and he was going back. He said, "I'll come up and I'll get your job up there." So I'd never been out of town at all, always been at home, you know. And I went up to Leonora and got a job. I followed up for a couple of weeks before I get a job, and I had reward and lodges and everything else. And I finally got a job underground, and I did work on the surface for a while there a little bit, and then I went underground and I worked there for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 years or something, until the war started. I was still working underground then. I was finally promoted to a skippy. Mm-hmm. Used to ride the skip up and down the shaft. And then when the war broke out...
Can I just hold you at that point? I'll just pause. Now Dick, I just did ask you if you had joined the militia.
Yes, going back now, when I was about 17 I suppose, we joined the engineers in at Francis Street. We used to go there every Thursday night, and once a fortnight we go out to Midland to a camp out there, and we thought we were wonderful in our uniforms, and that went on for a couple of years, I think, you know, during working time. But then, as I say, I went up to Gwalia.
Yes.
And I had no idea where I was or what I was. I was completely lost, a city boy, you know. Anyhow, I followed up and got a job working on the service for a couple of weeks, and then I got a job underground on what they call the mullock, the refill, and they dug out. And I was driving horses down there, went horses with a rake of trucks, you know, and I was driving them, and then our life was, as soon as you came home, the place was down to the pub. That's the only place that was the hub of everything. And we were there one night, nice and done, a lot of us, all young blokes, and war was declared. So we all got in a bloody old car that I had, and we went to town, in Leonora, from Gwalia, to join up. And of course we pulled the look at the road board secretary, can't think of his name, pulled him out of bed, and he was very happy. And finally he got rid of us by calling the police, and we all said to come back tomorrow. So we went back tomorrow, and he didn't have anything for us to join up. It was all new, so we had to wait. And as soon as you got the necessary information, we joined up. Well, they wouldn't take us because we were essential service mining. And in 1941, June 1941, they called us up. So I left before everybody else because I came in to put in a fortnight with my parents. Went out to Karrakatta, joined up, and from there we go down to Naval Base, and from there up to Northern. And I did a physical training course, and I went over to Melbourne. There was 2 of us picked out of the class or something. I went to Melbourne and did the course there, and then that made me a corporal. And came back. I always remember when I came back, I was not on the books or anything, and I was just walking out the camp for about a month, out of Perth, till one day the sergeant major saw me and he said, "Who are you?" And that was the finish of me. I did my army with that. And as I say, I was a corporal by this time, and we did general training and there. And the 2nd, 4th came into Fremantle on the Aquitania, and one morning at dawn we all got up and went down and got on the boat. We were going to go on one side and the rest of them were all getting off the other side though.
So you were one of the reinforcements?
I was reinforcement.
Yes.
Yeah, it was reinforcement. Yeah. And I was straight away put into B Company and demoted, of course. You went straight back to a private. I went into B Company, and we went to Christmas Island, and we got off the Aquitania and got to 3 little Dutch boats. Can't think of the names of them. And I remember well because for dinner there one day they killed a bullock on the floor in the kitchen, and we were all watching this bullock being killed for 11 feet. And we landed in Singapore on my birthday, 25th of January. And we got off and went to a camp. Can't even think of the name of the camp. And I know there was a Pommy canteen just handy by. And we used to go over there and get a few bottles of beer and so forth. And every night the Japs used to come over and bomb us. And of course we were too smart. We were sitting on top of the dugouts. We were sitting on the top, drinking the beer, laughing our heads off until we finished up. The bombs were landing so bloody close to us, we finished up on the bottom of them. But that was the first bit of action I had. And then some of us, our battalion was broken up, in a machine gun battalion was broken up, and they were along the coast in different places, and I was back with B Company headquarters. Smith Ryan, Captain Smith Ryan. Him and I didn't make it off at all. And one little incident, there used to be a Jap plane fly over before they'd come over. In the meantime, they blew up the wharf, the crossing there.
Causeway.
I saw that go up. I was up at there. And what was I saying?
The Jap plane?
Oh, this little plane used to come over spotting. He'd go over, look at the next thing, you'd see the artillery coming over us, you see. Anyhow, I upset Smith Ryan one day there too badly, and I used to handle a Bren gun. And he said, get up on that hill there, he said, set up your Bren gun for aircraft, he said, but under no conditions fire it. So it happens to get rid of me, that was all out of the camp. So I went up there, and rather funny, this bugger, he used to fly over that low, you could see him leaning out of the plane, you know. Anyhow, he's flying over, and I'm looking up at him, he's looking down at me, and he waved to me. And believe it or not, I waved back at him. And it was that close, you know, I could have got him, but I wasn't allowed. Well, that was the same with when we were on the island, the Japs, you could see them all, millions of them running around over on the mainland, and we weren't allowed to fire at them, because we weren't at war with bloody Johor. And then I went back, Well, then we all collected together and marched out to Cellaring Barracks out in Changi. And we just got out there and dumped, and then we finally found a house, one of the old officers' houses, and the whole, God, 100 of us had lived in one house underneath it and out. And we worked on a shrine at the golf course. There was a lake with an island in the middle of it, and we put a footbridge across to it, and we built a shrine. And very nice bit of work it was too. It was for a Jap priest to live there and look after them generally. And he, when we went to work every day, we used to take tobacco tin, take a few white ants or bugs or something. I always think we were just kind of, I don't think it did any good. But this shrine thing, the house that we built, it was built completely of wood. Even the nails were bamboo nails, and they brought all special stuff. And we worked on that thing, and when people took over after the war, they blew the bloody thing up, which was, I feel, was a bit of a shame because it was really good. We used to go to town and get big steps from a building, big granite steps, and take them out there and fit it all out there. And when we were in with the truck, a dozen would sit on the back of the truck, they'd pull in the back of a brothel, and then they'd go, and we'd have to sit in the truck and wait for them, and go get a load of granite. And then came back to, say, oh no, I went from there, I was at Adam Park then, and then we went from there around to another camp right close to the golf course where we were building. Incidents there, you must have heard but one bloke used to get a gallon of petrol every day to start his steamroller. And that went on, nobody never before. And a lot of incidents there. Where we walked across this footbridge, we ordered a shovel or a pick or something, and coming home at night, most of it drop them in the river, into the lake in the woodland. And they were pretty dull. They weren't very well educated at all, There was a sergeant, he was about the only bloke that could do anything. And he could get away with anything, which we did. We're putting a cement bridge over a bit of a creek, and one of the Japs put his sword down, and one of our blokes grabbed it and dropped it in the cement and almost went on. It was held at play, it was never found, Everybody was belted, Well, that's where I got my first belting there. So we were putting a tank up on a stand, and these little buggers used to yell and scream and push and shove, Well, I did my lolly and used one of these Japs and said, if you leave it alone, we put the bloody thing up, we'll get it up, Anyhow, we did, we got it up. And then, as I came down off the stand here, there was a piece of about inch square had been used for stirring the tar, and then thrown on the ground and picked up all the rocks and things and used to. It was like a baseball bat. And he had the little bugger slid into me with that, and I got quite a bastard. Anyhow, I ran away and I got in. There was a mob fixing the floor, polishing the floor, and I was down and amongst them polishing the floor, and he never found me. Looking for me next day, but they kept me home. And when that was finished, we went back to Changi again. We started a Buffalo Lodge there.
Was Wally holding in with that, with you?
Yeah, there was people giving lectures, officers, people around there. All sorts of lodges all started up, and then of course the old bulletin you've seen. We had a big 12-inch digger which we used to dig the toilets with and put a box on. And then on the first lot that went out, Don Force, on this end of the line, the others was all Don mostly. I don't know where they got it from, but I was on D Force. Get rid of me again, and we went to
Van Pong?
No, we went to a place before the end of the railway line, anyhow.
Non-Pladuk?
Non-Pladuk, yeah. And then from there we went up to K2.
Now how did you, can I ask you some questions now? From Non-Pladuk to getting up to Konyu 2, how did you get there? Did you walk or were you trucked or what?
We did some walking, but we also though had trucks of rice. We're going up there. There's a road up that far, but that was as far as it went. And most of us got a ride.
Yes.
Because I remember the boys all filled up their haversacks with rice. Dug a hole in the bag and filled their haversacks as well. And we got there, then we had to put up tents.
Yeah, well just before you get to that, do you remember when you got to Kanchanaburi, that's probably the end of the bitumen road?
No bitumen.
No bitumen road? Well
No.
you said you went up there on trucks though.
Oh, the rough old trucks.
Okay, do you know where Kanchanaburi is in your...
Yeah, Canberra we used to call it.
Canberra, yes. Now, from there to Konyu, do you remember how you got there? Did you walk up beside the Mekong River and cross the river?
Yeah, we walked quite a bit of it, and we went a fair bit on trucks.
Yes.
Got to there.
Yes.
And then it started to get tough then.
Yes. And that was at Konyu?
At K2, yeah.
Yeah, K2.
And there was K2 and the river camp also.
Yes.
Anyway, we put up tents and bamboo slats to sleep on, and on the ground. It was all mud otherwise, and a couple of blokes slept outside under the flies.
Under fly.
And every morning we had to supply so many hundred people to go out to the line, to walk about 2, 3 or 4 mile out to work on the line and cuttings, you know.
Yes.
And if there weren't enough, everybody, all the officers got a belt or something till they. And the jets would go in and drag half of them out of the hospital.
Did you have a doctor with you at Konyu too?
Yeah, that was Phil Millard was there.
Phil Millard was with you.
Yeah, Phil and matter of fact, one day a Jap slapped Phil's face. And every man in the camp was on parade at the moment, and everybody moved forward. And old Bluey Burgess yelled out at tension, you know, and we stopped. Thank God he did, because that would have been the end of us all. But everybody loved old Phil. Very quiet, inoffensive bloke.
Do you know anything about any treatments that he did? Anything that stands in your mind? Did you ever see him working in his RAP or?
No, I did see him take a bloke's leg off.
Did you?
We had a fly wire, mosquito net room about that big, you know. Yeah. About 8 or 10 foot square. Yeah. Bamboo table. Yeah. And I remember this. I saw several, but I saw this one. You got the saw. The only saw we had was in the kitchen for sawing wood, and they'd steam it and wash it and polish it and cut a leg off with it. And they just take it away in a bit of bag and throw it in a hole. Yeah. And this first one I saw, the bloke, they took his leg off and he was conscious. And they started taking it away. He said, "Bring that bastard back." And everybody looked, and they brought it back, and he looked at him and he said, "Now I hate you, bastard." I'll never forget that.
And was it an ulcer or what? Why?
Ulcers, all right.
Yeah. Ulcers, yeah. Did you see that ulcer?
Ulcers got as big as a dinner plate.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Matter of fact, one bloke had a big ulcer. The whole leg was there, and the bone was taken out, and a new bone started to grow. You could see it like sinews and things, but it would follow the edge of round the edge of the saw, you know, and but it never grew, of course. No. They cut that bit out, but there wasn't much you could do. All they do, the doctors, they tore up blankets and used to boil them, and then ulcers just whack them on red hot, you know. And hold the bloke down while he screamed. And
do you remember who that bloke was? Or was he a member of your unit? The fellow who...
God knows who he was. See, you could be sleeping or living or working beside any nationality. You were just, as far as they were concerned, we tried to keep our battalion together as much as possible. And but they'd throw in 100 bloody. They just throw in everybody. They want 100 men for there. Okay, they go and grab 100. Where how they came from. Could come from 2 different camps.
Yes.
But, they didn't care. It was a body. That was all they wanted.
So from Connew 2, where did you go?
Well, I worked there for a long while. That was our worst camp. And then we worked camp up the line as we followed it up.
Did you see Major Saggers at any time when he was in that area?
No, he went to Burma, didn't he?
No, he was in the Connew area. He was in a camp called Malayan Hamlet.
No, don't even know the camp.
Yeah.
No, I never saw a work, but digressing a little bit. I was going to tell you it when we come out, but no, I never saw him. We only had Doc Millard. We had Doc Millard and Mick Wedge and 2 majors from the east. Lazy bastards. They used to lay and hide in their hut all day and all night, and Mick had to go out and do everything. He'd get out and tend to the burials and collar replacement and everything. Old Mick did the whole lot. Yeah. But these pair of bastards. Major Quick, I always remember him. Yeah,
well, he was supposed to be in charge of your group, wasn't he?
That's right, And he sent me back up the line. I know when we were down there one time, one of the sick blokes, we must have been a bit of a wrestler, but one of the sick blokes had a $1 note torn, and there was a canteen there run by the officers. And I went across to get him some bananas with us, and a sergeant bloke behind the counter refused to take it. He said it was torn, no good. Well, I went to town properly and lost my temper, and next thing, one of the officers who was laying in a bed straight behind the counter came round, and that's when I got myself into real trouble. I was sent back up the line again.
So, where did they send you to?
We went camp to camp doing maintenance, up and down.
Yeah.
And that was the time, well, I thought I was gone. The crowd from Burma, working in Burma, had come down on the line after it was completed down to Thailand. And I was the only Aussie in this crowd, and all the villains of Sydney, you know, and I got sent up with them, and all I had was a Dixie and a G-string, and I could see the end, you know. And this bomb coming down, we were on the other side of the camp, staying there for a night or 2 or something, and 2 sergeants come over from there. The bloke that wrote the book, 2 sergeants come over and grabbed me and took me back over to their camp, and there was a Major Captain Thomas, Captain I think.
Archie Thomas?
Major.
Archie?
Yeah,
Archie Thomas?
Yeah, that's the way.
Yeah.
He was there, and anyhow they took me into a little room, or, you know, bamboo stage, and he said, Ridgewell, he said, we've heard about you, you're a bloody mischievous, always causing bloody trouble, which I was, unfortunately. And he said, we can't see you there where you are at the moment, so we'll take you in with our group and take you down south again if you make me a solemn promise that you'll behave yourself. Which I'd have kissed his boots, but I done with it anyhow. Then I came down to Tamarkan.
So that was actually probably at Concoita, was it, when that happened?
Well, up there, I couldn't tell what camp, I don't know what the camp was.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Well up at...
anyway, you went down to Tamarkan.
Down to Tamarkan, and it was almost like a holiday camp until they started bombing the bridge.
Yeah.
And they put a hole in the bridge one night, and the next, that same night, we built a bamboo bridge across the river beside it, and trains came up to one side, we unloaded them on our back, walked across the bridge and loaded them on a train the other side, and they never lost a moment. Yes.
But, when you were in Tamarkan, did you see Claude Anderson while you were in Tamarkan?
No. I can't remember seeing Claude any time.
Well, he was in Tamarkan when that bombing occurred.
Well, I was there.
Yes.
Matter of fact, there was one bomb landed, skidded up on the side of the river, unexploded, 2,000 pounds of, you know.
Yeah.
And it laid there for a while, and then quite a while, and then the Japs decided to move it. So out we went and put ropes around it. We were supposed to drag it up into the bush, you see. Well, the biggest fight was to get the end of the bloody rope. Everybody wanted the far end of the rope, you know. Anyway, we pulled it up and laid the bit. It was still there when we left, or whatever. But,
and it hadn't been disarmed, it was still...
It still is, yes.
Was it?
It hadn't exploded.
Yeah.
And we used to go across the river there and get bamboos and things, bring them back while we were over there, do a bit of trading, you know. And that was from the river camp. And,
now, are you talking about Tamakan? Or,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, this was further up at Tarso, I think it was, we used to go through. No, Tamakan we were there. I remember one occasion there was some, see it was a real base, it was the bottom. And some officers, senior officers were coming to make an inspection.
Or Japanese senior officers?
Jap, yeah. So we had to wash the pigs, so they'd look nice and clean and spotless for when the officers arrived. So we did, we washed them, cleaned them, and as soon as we did, they lay down in the bloody mud, and the Japs went mad. But I don't think the officers even looked at them. But we were in there, and we didn't do much work out of there. Then we went across to the river, just across the river, Tarso.
Well, you went to, well, let's, can I just ask you something? I'll just ask if you can remember a camp called Kinsaok.
Yeah.
Can you remember being in there?
Yes,
anything
I can
about it?
Being there, but
was it a big camp?
Yes, Kinsaok was quite a big camp.
Yeah.
I think that was where they bombed the train.
I think the trains were bombed in a number of places.
Yeah, well, that's the fact. There was a train they used to use for carrying ballast and stuff out to work on the line, and they bombed, and they dropped a bomb, and they went inside the cabin. You know, a train's got a cabin open, and it went straight in there with it and blew it to bloody pieces. And nobody got hurt. I think it was there too where we built the big bund around there was a big food store, all big as my block, and the rats had got into it. So the Japs decided we'd dig a bund 6 foot deep, 6 foot wide, and then all the sand up on the outside, so as to keep the bloody rats in there and not let them out. So every night we used to go put a couple of bamboos across and go in and get some tucker, you know, and so forth. But that was their attitude. There's another time they, I remember, they were, see, they weren't educated at all. They were very illiterate, Michael. And
now, can I just ask you whether you're talking about the Japanese guards or the Korean guards? Which?
Well, they were mostly Koreans, but there was always Japs there in charge. You know.
Yes.
The Koreans were just treated as rubbish too. But there was an Indian camp right next to us up there, about Kinsaya way, so I could never guarantee where I was.
No.
And there was a lion, well, a tiger I should say, in the bush, getting around at night. You could hear him roaring and carrying on. So one of these Indians was riddled with dysentery. So they took him out and tied him to a tree, and their theory was that they would cat and eat and get dysentery and die. That was their attitude, yeah. And I think some of his mates went out and grabbed him and brought him in before the tiger got him. But we weren't worried with tigers because see, all the noise and fires drove all the big animals away.
Do you remember Jack Sherman?
Yeah, Jack Sherman was one of the blokes that came and picked me up. It's Archie Thomas. Jack Sherman and the bloke that rode something in Cargill. What's the name of the book?
Les Cody.
Yes, Les Cody. Yes, Les Cody and Sherman. They were the two sergeants that came across and got me.
Did they?
Yeah.
And which camp do you think that was in?
Well, this is after we went back on maintenance.
Yes.
All the villains.
Yes.
And I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I do know that I went back up 3 times.
Yeah, Jack Sherman says that he went back up the line to about the 200 kilo point, and it was called the Wood Camp or the Jungle Camp or something like that.
Yeah, well, see, they used them as kilo camps.
Yes.
Up in Burma.
Yeah.
And they were named down
Yeah.
where we were.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know. I never knew of Jack going back up there.
Yeah.
Except Cody, and I think Jack might have been with him. When the war was over,
Yeah.
they went back up the line.
Yes, they did. Yeah. Yeah.
They went back up.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, your Murray Ewan says in his record of the 2nd 4th says that you were in Chong Kai camp at one stage. Now that was a hospital camp.
That's right. That was the main big camp everybody came down to for Chong Kai. It was a big camp.
Yeah, it was about 6 kilometres. We'll actually be there in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
But 6 kilometres from the bridge.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Now, that was, why were you there? Were you sick? Or?
No. They just transfer you out of there. And
You were shifted from Tamarkan to Chong Kai, were you?
from Tamarkan over there, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It was across the river, I think.
Yes, yeah.
And, yeah, it was there, and they were sort of, by this time, when at this period, it was pretty free. We, you know, the line had been finished and we were only doing maintenance.
Yes.
But then I got set up again then. We were standing on parade, all we had on was bloody G-strings and so forth. And the bloke in front of me with his hands behind him, I just stuck up behind him and put my dick in his hand.
Mm.
And he grabbed it and swung around, and the whole parade got all mixed up. Anyhow, I got into trouble, and there was a lieutenant, somebody, he said, "You want to come before me?" I said, and get your medicine, or do you want to go before the colonel? I said, "I'll have the bloody colonel." So the colonel fixed me, he sent me back up the line, and at this time I went right up to the Burma border.
Mm.
We used to do that, you know, blokes with their hands around, put your dick in their hand and then frighten Christ out of them. And I went up to Three Pagoda Pass, which was right on the border. And it was there where we were laying one day, or a day of it, and the hut went up to a gable, and folks were looking, they said, "What's that?" You know, everybody was guessing what it was, something showing through. Anyhow, a bloke went outside, got a bit of bamboo and poked it, and a bloody big python, about 6 inches diameter at least, fell and hit the floor, and he was hibernating and hardly moved, and before he did, some bloke come in with an axe and chopped his bloody head off and chopped him in sections. I got a piece like a piece of roast beef, you know, and they cooked it all sorts of ways, fried and boiled it, and did those sort of things, you know. But that was one of the incidents. Old Tom Doyle, I always remember he was there then that time.
Now, what were you doing up there? I know some people who went up there were actually digging tunnels. You weren't involved?
No, I never got involved in digging tunnels. When we came back down to Nakamnayok, the Japs were digging tunnels in the hills all around.
Yes.
We were never allowed to go near them.
So you were there when the war ended, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Nakamnayok.
And I'll never forget it. There was a bloody planes come over and dropped everything, anything you wanted, you know. And you'd see the Australians had come over and they'd kick a bloody big bale of blankets out with their feet and it hit the ground and smashed through tents and everything else. Well, weren't tents, they were huts. And then the Yankees had come over, they were that bloody high up that the bastards had land anywhere miles of the camp.
Yeah.
But the POMs came over, and I'll never get it, they circle around, they'd drop a parachute. They'd circle around and drop another one and it would touch it. Then they go around again and drop the bloody lot. And it would all land within touching distance.
And that was at Nakamnayok or Nakamnayok, yeah.
Nakamnayok, yeah. And then when the war finished, I went straight into hospital.
Now, do you know in your mind where Nakhon Nayok is in Thailand?
Although from memory, it was supposed to be about 22 k's out of Bangkok. That's all I can remember of.
And north of Bangkok?
I think so.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Do you remember somehow how you got from, say, somewhere near Canberra or Tamarkan or Chiang Kai to Nakhon Nayok?
I know it was not much work going on there, but no, I can't remember that. But I don't know if anybody ever told you, but when the war finished, half a dozen Pommy soldiers walked into our camp, and it's at Nakhon Nayok, and they'd been living out in the jungle, and they had a little steam engine. They used to feed it with bits of wood like matches. And it was a generator to keep in touch with the planes. And they'd been there a couple of weeks. And they just walked into the camp and took over. One bloke sold the old Jap colonel's bike through the fence to the bulls. Sold the parachutes to the bulls. Get a bit of money.
Do you remember anything about someone coming in, a parachutist coming into the camp at the end of the war?
No.
No?
No, the only one these blokes are coming from outside. There were so many parachutes coming.
No, well, Claude was obviously in a different camp. He was in Nakhon Nayok, but there must have been a number of camps.
Yeah, well...
Was there an officers' camp?
Well, they tried to keep the officers separate, you know, the officers themselves, but that was all. But, no, I don't remember. I remember seeing one bale of blankets get kicked out as far as you could see them. They kicked them out and the Bulls brought them in.
Yes.
And they landed out and they brought them in.
Yeah.
But, they dropped us cocoa. And so we used to get a 4-gallon kerosene tin full of water and mix limes, or dozens of limes in it, all the juice, and then we get an army bottle of what the Malays called lao. It was spirits, all strong. You couldn't drink it. So we put that in that 4 gallons, mix it all up. We'd all get pissed on 4 gallons of lao. See? But that was, we didn't have to do it ourselves. We were in the town and I got mixed up with from there, that's where my truck, from there I went to hospital. And
where was that, in Bangkok?
in Bangkok, Lula, Chulalongkorn Hospital.
Chulalongkorn.
That was there, and that's the first time. I woke up one morning, there's a Jap on the floor, scrubbing the bloody floor, so I sat on my bed watching him.
Yeah.
But, some of the blokes did stupid things. They pulled at this Nakhon Nayok, they got one Jap by the bloody head, and these mates rowed him out and just held him under the water, you know, things, stupid things like that. The only thing I got there was I got a silver bullet. There was a chap used to have a silver bullet on a chain, and he was called the Silver Bullet. Anyhow, when we got free, I decided I'd have that. Because they weren't going to do anything, they shot through and in Holland.
Now, from Bangkok, where did you go?
I was in the hospital, and then I went out to the showgrounds, I think it was. And from there, we were getting flown down to Singapore, and Bushy Top Simmons, he couldn't stand heights. They had to hold him down and to work on a bridge, you know, he couldn't stand heights. Anyhow, when it came time for him to go, he shot through and wouldn't fly, so I got his seat down to Singapore, and we went out to a camp next to the jail. Camp next to the jail there, and a bloke I was with there, Billy Breed, little Pommy bloke, nice little bloke, you know. quite much older than me. But there was a sergeant there from Australia taking particulars and how to send people home by boat or hospital or aeroplane or whatever. And so I went over to him and I told him I'd met a bloke just come up from Australia, and he told me that there was a bloke moving in on my wife. I wasn't even married. Bloke moving on my wife. I said, no, I'll do anything to get home bloody quick. I said to try to sort it out. Okay, he said, he put me on a plane. I went back and told Bill, and I said, now go over and tell him. He said, what did I tell him? I said, well, tell him that some bloke's taken over your farm. He had a farm down at Newdigate. I said, tell him that there's some bloke in there taken over your farm and your wife. He said, I haven't got a wife. I said, oh, I have to go and tell him. So I always remember, I was well back watching him. Old Bill was over, it's funny, he couldn't tell a lie if he wanted to, you know. Well, I saw this sergeant, he grabbed his belly, he laid back, he laughed and laughed his head at this bloody Bill. He said, for Christ's sake, he said, get on the aeroplane. So Bill and I came home together. But 5 days from Bangkok to Townsville. And, everywhere we stopped, we put in the hospital, given our effort, you know.
And from Townsville, where'd you go?
Landed at Townsville, and we got on a train and came down to Brisbane, put in the hospital. We had hospital cars now, you know. Put in the hospital for the night. And my brother was in Brisbane, and I somehow or other I got on and got him and met him there. So I'd seen him, he'd been in the Air Force. And then we went down to Sydney. Same thing there. We put in hospital for the night, you know, and looked after. We had sheets and pillow slips. You got no idea what that. And going back to New Guinea, Bill and I got off a plane there at night, and a young bloke in Australian uniform come up and he said, did you know Nobby Clark? Jack, I think he done it. Do you know Nobby Clark? I said, oh yes, and he died so and so up there lying, you know, he got this and had that. And I looked at the kid, you know, and I said, why? He said, he was my father. So that was my lesson, and to all of us, we never told anybody anything. Because when we got on the train and stopped, every train station we stopped at, they pour in bloody churns of ice cream, bundles of bloody tulips, bloody big Christmas cakes, anything, you know, and they'd all have a photo. Do you know this bloke? Do you know this bloke? And we didn't know anybody.
No.
They all wanted to know if we knew any of it. But the food, every station was the same. So there were some ordinary army people, women in a carriage that joined to us, but we had a door beside us. So, who was it, some bloke? And we busted the door open and poured all this tucker through to the soldiers, because we couldn't move in our carriages, you know. And every station we came to, we'd pour it all through to let make room for more, you know. And they all had a party. And then when I got to Sydney, I had an aunt in Sydney, and I woke up, you could get anything you bloody wanted, you know. Everywhere we got a new lot of clothes, bloody coats and trousers. And I said I had an auntie out, how's the chance of getting out and seeing her? I haven't seen her for years. And yeah, okay, I had to give me a car or a driver, and I went out and saw old Auntie Dolph, and came back and spent the night there. Then we went to Melbourne and spent the night there. And when we got to Adelaide, our battalion had been there such a long time. There were the bloody brass bands and bloody everybody else. And then we went across the Nullarbor to Kalgoorlie, and it's the station out of Kalgoorlie, Parkeston. And of course, an uncle of mine, Uncle Dick Ridgewell, he was waiting there to see me, and so was a couple of kids that I knew up there. And he said, come on, off we go. So I don't know, 2 or 3 of us went with him, and first dose was into a pub. Well, of course, as soon as we went in, everybody wanted to buy you a bloody drink. Everybody. And when you left with an armful of bloody beer. Right? Then the next thing you do, you'd find yourself at another pub, and there's the same. And yeah, we finished up nice and done, and when we got back to the train, eventually, there's local soldiers were loading us in all nice and done, you know. Half of them getting out the other side and coming around again, and it was a short, it was a hell of a mess. And anyhow, a bloke tried to call a roll, and he called for Corporal Ridgewell. And I said, Private Ridgewell. He said, no, Corporal. I said, well, you remember that? I said, from now on, which I did, and I got paid as a corporal. So when I came home, I remember I got 700 quid, and with that and the other pay I bought a house, 850 quid.
Very good move.
Oh yeah. And that was the start of. I've been married in the meantime. And when we went to Hollywood, of course, Christ, they went mad down there. We couldn't do anything wrong. Anything we wanted, you know. And half of them would get out and get nice and full of a daytime, come home at 3 o'clock in the morning, singing and bloody dancing and everything. And yet the sisters, they were wonderful. They handled everything, you know. Nobody attempted to molest any of the girls. But they wanted to sing and wake every bastard up. Anyhow, the girls used to handle it beautifully. They were very good. I remember when I was in there too, old Bruce Hunt.
Major Bruce Hunt?
Yeah, Major Bruce. He wanted to do an inspection of my bowel, but he had about 8 or 10 learning doctors there. And one was a woman. Her name was White. And I'm on my knee and my head down, up like this with the arse up in the air, and he's got a thing about this long up the arse, you see. And it's light on it, and he'd say, now, have a look at that, have a look at that. And I said, I can't say, well, what's wrong with him? And this went on, and he called them all, he was a bugger, old Bruce, he swore. And they spent about a quarter of an hour changing gear in my arse, you know. And anyhow, when I got off the table, I said, you bastard. And he looked at me, I said, you'll never fucking get me again. Next time I saw him, he wanted to fight me.
Yeah.
But old Bruce did that, and then when I went back to the ward, there was a Sister White in charge of the ward. Well, there was this Dr. White, this woman. The two women were talking together when I came in the ward, and Sister White said, oh, Mr. Ridgewell, she said, this is Dr. White. And Dr. White looked at me and she said, Sister, she said, I know him much better than you do. She'd been looking up there.
Yeah.
But we had the bomb there. They were absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
The blokes that had the ulcers, they joined them all together. You know that, did you?
No.
The blokes that had the big ulcers,
yeah.
They're never clear. So they opened this part up and welded them together.
Yes.
And they stayed like that for a couple of months.
Yes.
And then they cut them off and
yeah.
they got enough skin there to handle.
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't do anything wrong. Their cupboards were full of grog. And they could do anything, and the sisters were wonderful.
Yes, yeah.
And they were half drunk all the time. Everybody went in and took some grog in and put it in their cupboard, you know, and then the nurses never stopped it at all. Because they couldn't move, they were stuck there.
Yes.
And the pin. But, they were bloody wonderful to us down there.
Now, can I just take you back now, and you've told me that you had a lot to do with Phil Millard. Can you remember any other doctors on the line?
No, I went to Weary once, for something or another, and I possibly, I suppose 3 or 4 other doctors I'd seen, I wouldn't know who they were.
No. Does the name of Dr. Ian Duncan mean anything to you? No.
See, most of my last lot going up north, no doctors was a thing.
Yes, yes.
We were the dregs of nobody.
Were there any other 2nd, 4th fellows that went back and did that maintenance up the line like you did?
Not in my time. No, there was all these villains from bloody Sydney, all they were bloody thieves and rogues and pinching food and everything, you know.
Yeah.
And they got rid of them up the line for maintenance.
Yes.
And because I'd upset the colonel, I went up too. And I thought I was gone that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really did.
Now let's also go back, in your role as a reinforcement, and because you were really with the unit,
yeah.
only a matter of days before you were in action.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were part of the unit?
Well, when we got on the ship,
Mm.
we were all put into a company.
A company. Mm-hmm.
I went into B company.
Mm.
And
Who was the officer commanding B company?
Oh,
Who was command? Which?
Tom Bunning.
Oh yes.
Tom Bunning was there, and
Yeah.
Smith Ryan was in charge of
Captain
the quarter
Smith
company.
Ryan.
Can't do that. But I was with Smith Ryan all the time. I hope they stuck with me because nobody else bloody wanted me, you know.
Mm.
And,
Did you have any contact with Bunning after the war?
no, we hardly saw him.
Yeah.
I believe quite a few of our blokes who were close to him saw him mixed with him, but I had very little to do with him.
No. Mm. Did you know when you were in Singapore? Did you know when Colonel Anketel had been killed?
Yes, yeah, we heard it. You know, he was in the hospital. Yeah, we heard that he got killed. Well, see, when the Japs came through, see, they went to war. They went to total war. Not like us, not allowed to shoot because we're not at war with them. But the Japs were total. Didn't matter who it was, bang, crash, kill them. And so that's when that got knocked off. But the people in bed, and I wasn't there, I only heard it, but you know, sick people in bed, they used to blame them in bed and that sort of thing.
No, well, that's the incident that happened at the Alexandra Hospital, wasn't it?
At the
Yes.
Alexandra Hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. And who was your closest mate?
Well, as you shifted, you changed, but old Claudie Dow and I were pretty close together.
Really? And he ended up in Japan?
He went to Japan.
Oh.
Yeah, Claude, when we were up at K2, Claude was making axe handles, shovel handles out of green trees, you know. And he was kept back in the camp. That was his job, to make all these handles. And every night when I came home, he'd have 2 4-gallon drums of boiling water. One for a bath and one for drinking water.
Yes.
And for the short period we were there. Oh, another funny thing about Claude, he's a bloody villain now, Claude. But we're coming down one time and we pulled up, there was a village right on the water's edge. And we pulled up there and allowed to go in for a swim. And the ducks, they had their duck all floating around in the river, you know. And old Claude went in underneath and grabbed one and pulled him down. Stuck him in his G-string, and then we had duck that night.
He wrote a quite a decent story.
Hey, what?
Claude wrote an account of his experiences as a POW.
Oh, yeah.
I have a copy of it if you'd like to read it. Yeah. Now that was one of your mates. Any others?
Oh, the Gilmore boys, Clary MacDonald and Keith MacDonald, brothers. And when young Keith, KK we used to call him, when he died, Clary and I dug a hole for him and put him in, wrapped him in a blanket. Yeah. And as we were about to fill it in, Japs come in with 3 or 4 bloody booms carrying a boom body. And they just threw it in on top of Keith. And so we buried the 2 of them together. Yes. Well, he's been dug up since and in the cemetery. So I don't know whether it's him or the booms. No.
Yes. No. And which camp was that in? Any idea? No. You probably...
I was in a daze. Yeah. I think at all times I sort of turned everything off. Yes. See, I was a powder monkey at K2. Yeah. See, I'd worked on the mines, and so when they get there, I said, oh, I can blow it up, you know. Yeah. And so I used to have to go around. You had to drink, all the blokes with the hammer and tap had to drink a metre a day. And when it was a metre, we'd put some jelly down there, tamp it in and with a fuse, and they'd be ready for blowing. And so I had to go around, and some of the real sick blokes, they might only have half a metre. So I'd chock a block down before the Japs woke up, you know. And a lot of the holes we did that with. And then they'd give me a cigarette. And I had to go around and puff the cigarette and light the fuse and puff it blow all the fuses with a cigarette.
So you must have had fuses of different lengths, because if you did them all at the one time, it'd go off while you were doing it.
That's right, but you'd like to get anything.
Yeah.
You know, they just give you the bloody things. They had the pieces of fuse with the detonators on them, and I can't remember the individual lengths, but I know used to light and run all the bloody way down and off, you know.
Yeah.
And we go in and clean it up.
And would you tell me what was the worst experience you had?
This trip when I went back up the line and Thomas dragged me out, I knew I was dead then.
Yes.
I knew I was dead then.
But he pulled you in because he was with A Force.
Yes, right. And they came down the line, and they were in that part of the
they were
car.
in yeah.
And they see, somebody knew I was there, so...
And they took you in with their grub,
took you
down.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a couple of experiences. We took the top of Buckatima Hill.
Yes.
And we built a big memorial for the Japs.
Yeah.
They allowed us to build a wooden cross behind it for our blokes.
Yeah.
And we were up there working one day. I was in charge of a working party. There's only got 6 or 8 of us. And we're standing there in the sun, waiting, and a G-string and nothing else. And the blokes were all going crooked beam. And I said, it's just at the top of my bloody voice, I said, where's this little yellow bastard that's supposed to be looking after us? And right behind me, a Yankee boy said, here he is, buddy, here's this little yellow bastard. He'd been born in America. He'd gone home to Japan for holiday, and they grabbed him as an interpreter. And that's all he did. He never said a word. He understood fully. And another time we were up the line, we were knocking off at 5 o'clock. We're on maintenance, and it was, I was working here, the Jap was there, and our sergeant was down behind there. And he yelled out to us, doesn't this little bastard know what the time is? And the little chap looked at me, he says, it is now 2 minutes to 5.
Yes, yeah.
And I got away with both of them.
Yes.
I didn't get away with the one at the tank, I got a real thorough melting then.
Yes.
But that's, I don't know, not much else out there. Oh, another little thing might interest somebody. We'd been marching from one camp to another, carrying our gear and everything, and well, all we had was a bloody bucket and a Dixie and a bloody G-string, you know, and a bag that we'd use as a blanket. But the Dutch used to carry everything, they had big yellow backpacks, bigger than your boat, and they'd have everything in it. And up above their heads, and we're going across this river, it's running fairly fast, and we're going across up at chest high, walking it out there, and all of a sudden one of these Dutch blokes fell over, and he's going down the river. Nobody's saying a word, we're all rooted, and he yelled out, help, help, help. Not a word out, and then all of a sudden one Aussie bloke yelled out, hell up, you fucking self, you awful lead bastard, you know. Everybody laughed, then it stopped, and we carried on, you know. It was just, it lifted us all up for about 5 minutes, you know. Yeah, hell up, I'll never forget that.
Did he?
No, I never saw him again.
No.
Oh, when we were building bridges, we used to have the ropes, you know, on that thing, and there was nothing for a body to come down and bloody bump into you just going down the river, you know. We were in the river up to our necks, and this bloody body would come down, you'd shove it off and it'd go continue on, you know. Mostly bulls. Then somebody, Japs had knocked them over up north of it. I don't know, that's all right, unless you got any questions.
No, well, what about when you came back? When did you get married?
I came back, my girl had been waiting for me, and she'd been making military boots during the war, and she was evidently pretty good worker, and she collapsed, and they had to take her to hospital because she was buggered, you know. But I came home and saw her, and we, 1947, I think it was 1947, I think. We got married and we bought this old £850 house. Made a bloody lovely house of it too. I got 3,000 quid for it.
Mm.
Yeah, came in here.
Mm.
And
And how many family do you have? How many children?
2 boys.
Mm.
2 boys, one's in Manila, the other one's out at Southern River, out further now. Jim, you met Jim. He's the young bloke.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in 1950.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know. And of course, as I say, Bob Moore gave me a job. I worked in the workshop.
Mm.
I qualified as a fitter, got a ticket for that, and did automotive rebuilding, you know, and sort of things. And then when the whaling started, I drove a couple of trucks down with stuff down at Fremantle, and eventually became a permanent job. And then when we started doing maintenance, I became in charge of the maintenance. And I used to have, up here at Canning Bridge, I used to have 3 boats, 4, I used to have the Norway and 3 chasers, small ones, up into there, and more, and then take up to Fremantle at Harvest Road and do repairs and maintenance and so forth, and get them ready to sail again. And we also had two big steam chasers down at Rockingham. And I had a bloke down there, Ken Mayhew. He was looking after them for me. And I used to go down there every day for runs, you know, whatever supplies and stuff they wanted, and I'd be back up here. We worked on a lot over here at Canning Bridge, and then at Fremantle. Used to take the engines out of the small boats every year and replace them with reconditioned boats, engines.
Yes.
And then the whales started to run out. So we started off, we were allowed 500 whales at Carnarvon, and we were the first at Point Close, 500. And when the government came in, they got 500. And then the government decided to sell out, and Moores bought them. I'm not sure, it was 1,150,000, or some ridiculous price. There's a lot of controversy about it, they got it for nothing. And so we moved from Point Close, everything down to Carnarvon, and we caught 2 lots of 500. Well, they were worth about £1,000 each, those times. And then they slowly drifted off until the end. I can't tell you the year, I got some literature somewhere. But I drifted off, it wasn't they couldn't get the catch, couldn't get the... See, they were, originally, in Shark Bay, when the Commonwealth started, they'd have the ships appear, so they'd say, "Oh, go out and get us a whale." So inside, but the whales slowly got wise and went out and further and further, and of course we cut them down by the millions. But that was successful, very successful. In the first 5 years, they paid 25%. 5 years ago on the shares, and then Moore sold that out then to the Vesti Group. They bought the. We'd started prawning by this time. When the whales finished, we started the prawning.
Oh, really?
And when the
so you were living up in the northwest?
No, I was down here as a purchasing officer during the season.
Yes.
And I was on the boats when the boats were there. So I spent about 9 months on the boats and 3 months in the office. And they bought it. All the Carnarvon had beautiful accommodation, lovely. It had all been an Air Force accommodation at Geraldton. At the war, they took the lot and put them all up, and everybody had a hut and canteen and all that. So it was very well run.
Now, when did you retire?
We came down from Carnarvon.
Yes. Now, when did you retire?
1968, 68.
Oh, that was early.
I was 62. No, 64. I think.
You were 64, so that would be 1982, was it?
82.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, 82, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fell 82.
Yeah.
And I see, we could retire at 60, yes, but we never had enough money to live on, so I had to keep working.
Yes.
And there was no superannuation at all in the whaling days or anything.
Oh.
And I was chasing a bit of super down here, but when I was too old, so they wouldn't listen to me. But when I eventually retired, they gave me I don't know, about $500 or $600 a month.
Oh.
And that's increased now up to bloody near $1,000 a month I get still from there.
Yes, yeah.
And, but as I say, I used to look after the boat and everything, but when Vestry's Crown bought us out, well, they already had all their boat people and all their workers, and I went with them and they got rid of me quick smart, so I went back in the office doing the purchasing. And I'm still doing that when I retired. I remember the boss, Rich, Peter Rich, he came and he said, "Oh," he said, "your retirement's come through." He said, "I'll have a talk with you later and sort it out." I said, "No, you won't." I said, "I'll finish Friday." He said, "What?" I said, "I'll finish Friday." So I did. I went straight out. I had to get away from it.
Well, I think we've just about covered everything and more.
I think you've covered more than I thought I could.
Well, can I say, Dick, thank you very much for the privilege of this interview.
I've never talked that much, I don't think.